Hi everyone, Pat here, and welcome back to this week's Charting from Blank episode. Episode 42 is going to be on tier, thanks to Chesky in the Wealth Group Discord for the recommendation. Links to socials are in below, and link to the Discord is in the description, so make sure you guys go and check that out. So tier is a coin I haven't looked at for a while. It's also a coin I haven't seen be mentioned for a while, and that's because it's a bit of a has-been. I think a lot of people have been hurt on tier over the past couple years, basically since it topped out in 2024, Q1 2024, and it's a bit of a has-been coin, like I just said, and the chart really does speak for itself. A lot of people have been caught trying to time a bottom on this, myself included. I think I tried to time a bottom on it back in May 24, and then also back here in November on the breakout, and both times sort of like failed. And I think this chart is pretty cooked for the foreseeable future until we see a few things play out, and we'll discuss those setups today. You know, in terms of this coin, right, and everything else that's happened in the market, you have to look at this and think, okay, why is it underperforming, and why is it not seeing, you know, several 100% bounces off the lows like every other coin has done so far since we bottomed back in April, right? You know, we can see clearly here tier, you know, it's only bounced 60% off the lows, clearly underperforming. And realistically, do you want to be putting your money in a coin that's heavily underperforming right now? Probably not. So we're going to start on the monthly and take a look at the monthly chart. You know, pretty brutal chart really. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months consecutively like higher, you know, rallied like 60x pretty much, and it's just been a staircase down, right? Basically elevator up, staircase down, as people like to call it. The whole way down basically found one level of support around this 4-5 region, but since it lost that 4-5 region, it's just been down only. And really on the monthly, we don't have much to work with. Probably going to have to look at the weekly, see what the weekly has to offer, and then go from there. So looking at the weekly, we've still got that monthly level highlighted. Volume is probably non-existent down here. We can see that pretty much under this weekly support that we formed right now is nothing but air. And something like tier, if it loses this support at 235 area, let's call it 235, it's probably going to go back down towards that sort of listing lows about around 0.5, which would be, you know, brutal. This is a coin, you know, fundamental wise, I'm not entirely sure, you know, the huge background of it, and regarding unlocks and stuff. I know there was a lot of people positioned with tier being staked, and whether that's like all been unlocks now or not, I'm not entirely sure. But you know, this chart is something that has hurt a lot of people. And in terms of a bottom, we could potentially find that it could be forming a bottom here, right? That maybe we do, you know, something like this, where we form this 3 drive into the lows, and the momentum can show some sort of divergence, because even on this weekly time frame, we don't have a divergence here really. The RSIs stay pretty flat. The awesome oscillators actually, to me, look to be making a new low as well. So, you know, this structure can be nice, but a lot of the time when you have this structure, you want to see some momentum divergences as well. So if tier puts in maybe like a 3rd drive under this support area and reclaims, along with that we get some, you know, momentum divergence into this 3rd low, then I would consider maybe looking for a reversal on the weekly. But until then, you know, I think this is not something you want to be bidding on spot personally, and is probably at risk of just going to new lows, right? And if it does, like I said, look for that reclaim, look for that sweep, that reclaim, and along with that, look for that RSI divergence and the awesome oscillator divergence. Obviously, if this puts in a strong move back towards 448, maybe even $5, you know, and tier starts to flip above this region, you've got this high volume node POC there, marking this at $5, right? A $5 hold number, bit of a psychological number, I would say. If tier, right, at some point like gets a good break above $5, flips this big weekly supply in this high volume node park, this makes a really nice place for an entry. I think if it done something like this and gave a good setup like this, then yes, it could probably put in a reversal, and we'd see a big high time frame breakout, probably targeting, you know, the back end of a lot of this market imbalance that was left on the way down. That's in terms of a big high time frame, like sort of reclaim, flip of the weekly supply. Like, you know, this is a lot further down the line in terms of when TIA could potentially see some good conditions, but for now I think this is looking a little bit cooked. So we're going to look at the daily. A little bit weak on the structure side of things. This looks like it's ready to roll over again. Maybe it's going to give that sweep that I just discussed, right, down under these lows into $2, right? And I think this on the daily and weekly, this can be a really nice setup, right? If TIA sweeps under here, under $2, reclaims 235, I think this can be a really nice setup. At least from here, you could look at a reversal targeting like 448. But right now, despite this being a good support, I don't like what I see here. Kind of reminds me of just the structure it's been doing over and again, right? Like build up lows, break down, build up lows, break down. So, you know, this aligns with that weekly plan that I discussed. If we get that extra low, extra sweep down and a reclaim on the weekly, right? On the weekly, if we get some sort of divergence, right, as price makes a new lower low, RSI makes a new higher high, Austin oscillator makes a new higher high, and then you get the reclaim on the daily, I think that looks fantastic for a setup. So these are probably the two main setups right now. This is probably the closest you're going to get in the near term to an entry on TIA. Until then, it's probably just going to continue to bleed out, right? If it breaks down under here and gets stuck, it probably just bleeds out. And in terms of a spot entry, I wouldn't bid into something that's bleeding out into fresh lows under listing lows. Or you've got that option I just said, much higher time frame option, probably would come later down the line if it ever did start to get some relief in the market. Then flipping this high volume node POC, this weekly supply, we can look at taking a position much higher. But this is kind of my favorable option. Option one is kind of my favorable option right now. And taking a look at the EMAs on the daily as well, we can see how cooked this is. I mean, the EMAs of the EMA 89 and the 21 on the daily has been just slamming price down over and over again. It's been a brutal place for TIA, and you know, I think until we see a good flip of this sweep and reclaim, I would remain position off, and that's a first for me coming into this charting from blank episode. Usually I tend to have some sort of positive things to say about price, but right now this is not something I can look at in a positive way, simply because of the lack of relief we are getting, which, you know, if we want to flip that into a positive, a lot of the time when stuff does start to look really dead and weak, that's a good opportunity to be a buyer. But right now in this market, with the way altcoins are trading, I'm not massively interested in underperformers and looking at outperformers in the market to be putting my money into. But that being said, you know, look for the sweep under there for the setup, look for the reclaim. I think it should be a very simple trade to take in terms of what you want to be looking for. And like I said, keep an eye on the weekly time frame and see if we can get that RSI and awesome oscillator reversal. In terms of targets, you know, reclaim here, you could target $5, flip $5, you know, we could target $10, maybe even as high as 14, right? Because this would be a much higher much higher time frame and a significant reclaim. That'll pretty much do it for this week's Charting from Blank episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, kept it under 10 minutes, which is a rare occurrence for me. All socials are linked in the description, and if you have any requests for next week's Charting from Blank episode, feel free to leave them in the comments. See you guys next week. Bye bye.